I did everything by the book. Work late, live frugal, stay responsible. That was the mantra. For 10 years, I pulled 60-hour weeks at the accounting firm, clinging to the idea that someday it would all pay off. I'm Laura Mitchell, 30, single, and, finally, a homeowner. 2 weeks ago, I signed the deed with trembling hands and a heart full of disbelief. My grandmother's passing left me with a modest inheritance, just enough to give my savings a boost. I'd been hoarding every penny since I was 20, skipping trips, packing lunches, and living in a shoebox apartment while friends sipped cocktails in Santorini. When my savings hit $300,000, I pulled the trigger, bought my dream apartment in cash. 2 bedrooms, 10 minutes from work, in a neighborhood that whispers of future promise. The wallpaper was an eyesore, the kitchen a relic from the 90s, but I didn't care. I was going to make it mine, one DIY night at a time. Just as I was halfway through peeling off a wallpaper, my phone buzzed. Mom. Laura, sweetie, come home next Saturday. Family meeting, she said, all syrup and sugar. That tone always meant one thing, trouble wrapped in good intentions. Family meeting? I asked, suspicious. What's going on? Oh, just a little surprise, Mom said too quickly. Be here by 4, and bring that Black Forest cake from the bakery near you. I frowned. What's this really about? Your sister and Jason will be there. So will the rest of the family. It's a gathering, Laura. A special one. Then click. She hung up. My suspicion deepened. The entire clan for a so-called casual gathering? Something was definitely off. It's a secret, Laura. A surprise, Mom repeated, her tone sugar-coated but firm. Just be here. Fine, I muttered, heart uneasy. She hung up before I could say another word. I rolled my eyes and turned back to the mess on my wall. Whatever scheme Mom had in mind, it could wait. I had paint to roll, walls to patch, and no time for family theatrics. My sister Chloe, 27, gorgeous, carefree, has been dating Jason for 4 years now. They share a trendy downtown loft with exposed brick and not a single bookshelf in sight. Chloe always got the easy road, while I paved mine with calluses and compromise. She waved pom-poms under Friday night lights. I argued policy reform in empty classrooms. She took a gap decade. I took night classes and survived on caffeine. And yet, somehow our parents applauded her journey. At home, Chloe was a melody that never stopped playing. When Chloe and I had our dance recitals the same weekend, only one got front row seats, and it wasn't me. Chloe got balloons, banners, and a backyard bash. I got lasagna under fluorescent lights. My 16th brought me a second-hand bike. Chloe's? A brand new car and a family photo shoot. Chloe needs help getting to her events, they said, as if debate meets and volunteer work didn't count. I wasn't the tantrum type. I built myself in silence, brick by bloody brick. The week slipped by in a blur of paint fumes and sore muscles. I stripped the last of the wallpaper and rolled on the first coat of primer with aching satisfaction. Each blister was a badge of pride. My space, my sweat, my rules. On Saturday, I woke at dawn, determined to finish the living room before diving into whatever family ambush awaited. I picked up the Black Forest cake, extra frosting of course, and tried not to roll my eyes. The closer I got, the heavier my chest felt. What kind of storm was brewing this time? The house, 2-story, colonial, heavy with history, was ours now, though you'd never know it. We let them stay, no questions asked. I never even considered anything else. It was the decent thing to do. The walls held echoes, laughter, tears, slammed doors, whispered dreams. The driveway was packed. Whatever this was, it had an audience. Uncle Steve's truck, Aunt Karen's minivan, all accounted for. Even Cousin Derek's motorcycle was slouched against the garage like it knew something was up. Whatever this was, It had drawn the whole bloodline out of hiding. I took a breath, steeled myself, and walked straight into the lion's den, cake box in hand. "Laura's here!" Mom called out like a hostess unveiling the last guest. She gave me a flash hug and snatched the cake like it was the star of the show. "Perfect timing," she chirped. "We're just sitting down." I scanned the living room like a soldier entering unfamiliar territory. Chloe and Jason played house on the couch, fingers laced, whispers flowing. Dad and Uncle Steve were deep in serious guy talk, all nods and furrowed brows. Aunt Karen and her brood had migrated toward the dining room like it was instinct. "What's going on?" I asked Chloe as I got close, trying to keep my voice light. She offered me that cryptic smile she always used when she had the upper hand. "You'll see," she said, voice like silk over thorns. That did nothing to soothe the unease growing like ivy in my chest. I trailed behind them into the dining room. Mom had brought out the good china. This was no ordinary dinner. Whatever bomb was about to drop, it was dressed in porcelain and buttercream. I slid into my seat beside Derek, who looked about as lost as I felt. "You got any idea what this is?" I whispered. He shook his head. "Not a clue." "Your mom said it was something big. That's all I know." Dishes made their rounds: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, while my cake claimed center stage like a sugary crown. Everyone chatted like extras in a play, skirting the obvious tension. Finally, Mom rose, tapped her glass like it was a royal summons. "Thank you all for coming," she said, beaming like a pageant queen. "We have some wonderful news," she announced, practically vibrating with excitement. "Chloe is pregnant," she said, tears welling like this was the virgin birth. Applause exploded like we'd just won the lottery. Chloe beamed. Jason beamed harder. "And they're getting engaged," Mom added. "The wedding will be soon." I clapped like everyone else. And in that moment, I meant it. Complicated or not, she was still my sister. "Congratulations, Chloe," I said, meeting her eyes across the china and casseroles. But Mom wasn't finished. She shot a look at Dad and Chloe, then turned to me with that smile, the kind that meant something awful was coming. "That's not all," she announced, slicing through the chatter like a blade. "We have another announcement," she said, with a gleam that made my skin crawl. The room fell dead silent. All eyes were on her, mine included, despite the knot tightening in my chest. "As you all know," she began, gesturing at me like a game show prize, "Laura bought herself an apartment." Relatives nodded, offering belated congratulations they couldn't be bothered with when I'd first shared the news. "She's 30, single, no husband, no children," Mom said, like she was reading off a resume of failure. "Not even a boyfriend," she added, twisting the knife. My cheeks burned as if she'd slapped me. What did my love life, or lack of one, have to do with anything? "Chloe, on the other hand," Mom continued, glowing, "is starting a family. They need a real home, not just some rented apartment." My pulse thundered. I knew exactly what was coming next. I glanced at Chloe and Jason, who suddenly found their mashed potatoes fascinating. Then Mom turned to me, smiling like a shark. "Laura," she said sweetly, "this is your chance to be generous, to show your love for your sister. You should give them your apartment," she said, like it was the most obvious solution in the world. The room froze. Forks halted midair. I stared at her, waiting for the laugh, the just kidding. It never came. "You can go back to renting," she shrugged, as if I'd just been asked to lend a sweater. "You don't need all that space," she added, twisting the guilt like a knife. I scanned the table, hoping someone, anyone, would speak up. Dad nodded along, silent but complicit. Chloe finally looked up, her eyes full of apology and hope. "That's a wonderful idea," Aunt Karen said, far too cheerfully. "Family comes first, after all," she added, smiling like a preacher. The table turned into a chorus of nods and murmured agreement. This wasn't a suggestion. This was a setup, a perfectly rehearsed ambush, and I was the only one without a script. "You can't be serious," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. "I'm dead serious," Mom said, tone like ice. "Your sister needs it more," she said, as if that settled it. I rose, slow and stiff, my chair dragging like a warning siren. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You want me to just hand over my apartment?" The apartment I bled and broke for, clocking 60-hour weeks for nearly a decade. The place I bought with Grandma's last gift and every sacrifice I made for 10 years. And now you want me to hand it over because Chloe had unprotected sex? "Laura," Dad warned, voice low and sharp, "don't be selfish." "Selfish?" I laughed, cold, sharp, and empty. I earned that apartment. Every cent was mine. No handouts, no favors. "But Chloe needs—" Mom tried again. "No," I snapped. "Absolutely not. It's mine. I earned it. End of story." Chloe dissolved into tears, clutching her flat stomach like I'd just attacked her unborn child. Jason shot me a look like I'd punted a kitten across the room. "How could you be so cold?" Mom hissed, her face burning red. "She's your sister, for God's sake." "And how can you ask me to give up everything I've bled for?" I shot back. "Why doesn't Chloe try grinding for once in her life?" The whispering started, hushed, sharp, judgmental. I caught words like selfish and always been the difficult one. "You've always been this way," Mom snapped. "Always about you." "I'm not giving her my apartment," I said again, voice like steel. "This conversation is over." What came next plays on loop in my head, frame by frame. Mom grabbed the untouched cake, the one I bought, and launched it at my face like a missile. It exploded on contact, frosting in my hair, chocolate down my neck. Dead silence, again. I wiped my eyes, cake chunks falling like pieces of dignity. Dad and Chloe didn't flinch, not even a blink. If anything, they looked satisfied, like justice had been served. I said nothing, just grabbed my bag and walked out, frosting, clinging like shame. Behind me, the yelling erupted. "Selfish brat!" Mom screeched. "We should have disowned you years ago," Dad barked. "How could you be so cruel to me?" Chloe sobbed. I got in my car, hands trembling like leaves in a storm. Somehow, I made it home, frosting crusted on my skin like war paint. I collapsed onto the secondhand couch I dragged from my old rental and stared at the ceiling, numb. My phone buzzed before I even caught my breath. Calls, texts, Mom, Dad, Chloe, all coming in like a swarm. "You're being dramatic. Just hand it over." "I can't believe how selfish you are right now. After all we've done for you, and you won't help your pregnant sister?" I powered off my phone and threw it onto the rug. What exactly had they done? For me? I was always second string to Chloe. Always. Back to school shopping? Chloe got labels, I got clearance rack rejects. Summer camp? They found money for Chloe's art retreat. Mine? Too expensive. Her sweet 16 had a DJ, lights, and 100 guests. Mine had a homemade cake and 2 bored cousins. And now they wanted the one thing that was entirely mine, the only thing I'd ever built with zero help. I thought of the house we'd just been in, Grandma's house, the house she left equally to Chloe and me in her will. We let our parents stay there, free, out of kindness. I owned half, just like Chloe. And then it hit me. I knew what came next. I woke up with steel in my spine and a plan in my head. I dug through my files until I found the folder, Grandma's will. There it was, proof in black and white. Chloe and I owned it, split down the middle. Our parents lived there because we allowed it, not because they owned it. I was dialing a lawyer when my phone lit up. A Facebook tag. From Mom. She had tagged me in a post. Dread bloomed as I opened the app and nearly dropped my phone. "It breaks my heart," she wrote, "but sometimes your own child betrays you." Yesterday, my daughter Laura turned her back on her pregnant sister in her hour of need. Though she had the means, Laura chose herself over her family. "As a mother, I'm devastated," she wrote with theatrical sorrow. "Please pray that Laura finds love in her heart." Dozens of comments poured in. Relatives, old neighbors, family friends. "I was there. Laura was so cold to poor Chloe," one relative posted. "Some people don't know what family is anymore," another chimed in. "Keeping a whole apartment while your pregnant sister struggles? Disgusting." No one mentioned the cake. No one asked what led to this. No one questioned why I had to sacrifice what I built with my own blood and time. I kept scrolling, each comment cutting deeper than the last. Mom was hearting the cruelest ones, replying with emojis and thanks. She wasn't just upset. She was organizing a public execution. Something in me snapped, the final thread of daughterly loyalty gone. I Googled real estate attorney near me and dialed the first name that popped up. "Blackwell Law," the receptionist answered. "I need a lawyer. Property rights," I said, steady, cold. 2 hours later, I sat across from Mark Blackwell, a lean man with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. "Let me get this straight," he said, tapping his pen. "You and your sister inherited your grandmother's house. Your parents live there, rent-free, because you allowed it. Now they've demanded your apartment and humiliated you online, and you want to know your legal rights." "Yes," I said simply. "I'm not out for revenge, but I won't be disrespected anymore. I need to know what I can do, legally." Mark reviewed the will and nodded. "This is clean and straightforward. You both own 50% of the property. You can force a sale and split the profit." "What do I need to do?" I asked. "I'll draft a formal notice of intent to sell your share," he said. "She can buy you out, or the whole house goes on the market. Legally, your parents have zero standing." I inhaled sharply. "Do it," I said. For the next few days, I drowned myself in paint fumes and dust. The living room was painted. I started tearing up the old carpet like it had personally offended me. Manual labor numbed the emotional chaos. I blocked their numbers. I needed air. I needed silence. Not guilt. Not noise. 5 days later, the doorbell shrieked. I peeked, and there they were. Mom, Dad, Chloe, Jason, the whole performance troupe. I didn't budge. "We know you're in there," Mom bellowed. "Open the door, Laura. We need to talk about this outrageous letter," Dad thundered. I stayed still and hit record. "Ungrateful little brat," Mom screamed. "After all we've done," she screeched. "You're kicking your pregnant sister onto the street," Chloe sobbed. "This is cruel, even for you," Jason snapped. 15 minutes of verbal chaos. I caught it all on record. The next morning, I sent the file to Mark. He called back instantly. "This is textbook harassment," he said flatly. "We can file a restraining order. But this strengthens our case." They've made their hostility crystal clear. 1 week later, Mark called with an update. Their lawyer reached out. They want mediation. We scheduled mediation for Monday. I arrived early, wearing my Navy power suit reserved for battle. Mark met me with a calm, competent nod. "You're in the right," he reminded. "Don't let guilt speak louder than facts." My parents showed up with Chloe, Jason, and their lawyer in tow. My mother's glare could have lit a match. "Traitor!" she spat as she brushed past. Their lawyer opened with a dry summary of the case. He argued that selling the house would create unreasonable hardship. Mark fired back, presenting the recordings and Facebook slander as hard evidence. After 2 tense hours, the lawyers stepped out, whispered, and returned with a deal. The house would be sold. The money split 50-50, just like Grandma intended. Mom broke down instantly. "Please, Laura," she whimpered, switching gears like a pro. "We're your family. How can you betray us like this?" "The cake? I'm sorry, I snapped," she added. I looked at her tear-streaked face and saw years of excuses flash before my eyes. I remembered the cake, the Facebook post, the shouting at my door. "The house will be sold," I said softly. "That's final." Mark simply nodded and got to work on the paperwork. The room pulsed with silent loathing, but I didn't flinch. I didn't care anymore. I was done shrinking. For once, I stood my ground and stayed standing. 2 months flew by in a haze of contracts and property showings. The house sold quicker than anyone guessed. The market was blazing, and the neighborhood, prime. After deductions, Chloe and I each got around $175,000. I never spoke to them again, not directly. Everything went through lawyers. Mark told me they were furious, but completely powerless. They'd lived rent-free in a house they never owned, and now they had to face that. No repairs, no taxes, no investment, just comfort at my expense. "What happens to them now?" I asked Mark. "Chloe's using her cut for a down payment," he replied. "Your parents are moving in with Chloe and Jason. They got a mortgage for the rest." I nodded, unsure if I felt relief or regret. Part of me ached with guilt. I'd forced them out, no matter how justified. But another part, one that remembered the frosting and the betrayal, felt finally deeply vindicated. "And you?" Mark asked, raising an eyebrow. "Got any plans for your cut?" "Investment portfolio," I said, without missing a beat. "I've been working with a financial advisor. Stocks, bonds, REITs. Diversified." "Smart," he nodded. "Very smart." "If that's everything, I'd say we're done here." I shook his hand firmly. "Thanks for everything," I said, meaning it. Walking out of his office, I felt lighter, like I'd dropped a weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. The burden of being the good one, the reliable one, the one who bent, gave, sacrificed. Back home, I walked through my apartment, my kingdom. Renovations nearly done. I'd ripped out every trace of the old life. New floors, new light, new energy, painted walls, a modern kitchen, sleek appliances. Even the lights gleamed like I'd earned them. It looked nothing like the place I walked into 3 months ago. Now it was mine, in every way that mattered. My phone buzzed. Sarah from work. "Hey, Sarah," I answered. "How are you really doing, Laura?" she asked softly. We talked about the infamous cake incident. "I'm okay," I said, and realized I actually meant it. "The house is sold. The money's in, and your family?" she asked. "Still a disaster," I sighed. "No contact." "At all. I hear whispers through mutuals." "Like what?" she asked. "Chloe got married last month. Family only." "I wasn't invited," I added with a wry smile. "I'm sorry, Laura," Sarah said. "Don't be. I wouldn't have gone," I said honestly. "She's having a boy. Any day now." "And you're okay not meeting your nephew?" she asked gently. "He'll grow up hearing I'm the villain in some dramatic family fable. They'll say Aunt Laura was greedy, cold, heartless. They'll skip how they treated me for 30 years. Sarah said nothing, just silence. "Families are messy," she finally said. "That's the understatement of the year." I let out a dry, tired laugh. Truth is, Sarah, I said, I don't think they ever saw me as family at all. I was never family. I was a fallback plan, a utility. Think you'll ever reconcile? Not unless they own what they did and mean it when they say sorry. But I knew that day would never come. They built their world around Chloe, and I was just background. Self-awareness doesn't magically appear in your 60s. I poured a glass of wine and stepped onto my balcony. The sunset bathed the sky in orange and soft rose. 6 months ago, I would have crumbled at the thought of being alone, but now I felt still, settled, free. My phone buzzed, another mutual friend. Chloe had the baby, a boy, 7 pounds 6 ounces, all's well. I stared, waiting to feel something, anything. Sadness, regret, rage. All I felt was distance, like hearing about a stranger's life. I knew the setup: Chloe, Jason, baby, parents, one house, one mortgage, a 30-year loan for a family built on silence. They'd be chained to that house long after the baby walks. But I felt no pity, only clarity. They'd made it clear I was never one of them, not family, just a resource, a wallet with a face. Just like I realized the day the cake hit me square in the face. My apartment greeted me with peace and silence. Some might say it's lonely. I call it mine. These walls bore my brushstrokes. These floors, my fingerprints. Every inch was earned. Every corner said, I'm not theirs anymore. On my shelf was a small box. Inside, only the photos that mattered. Me and Grandma. That was family. She never played favorites. Maybe she saw it all, the imbalance, the favoritism. She tried to even the scale the only way she could. Leaving us equal shares was her silent rebellion. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered, fingers resting on the lid. As for the rest of them, I had nothing left to say. The ball was in their court, and I had no intention of chasing it, and something told me it would stay there forever. I was done bleeding for people who wouldn't even bandage a scratch for me. I used to believe family meant unconditional love and support. But real family, blood or not, never asks you to burn just to keep them comfortable. They don't hurl cake at your face when you refuse to sacrifice yourself. My phone stayed silent. No tearful apologies from my mother. No quiet admissions from my father about years of favoritism. No gratitude from Chloe for the years I lived in her shadow. Never once complaining. And honestly, that was fine. I had my place, my portfolio, my career, and friends who saw me, not just used me. I had a life I laid down brick by brick, earned, not gifted.